Throughout the years, we've seen some marvelous movies. Some really made actors' careers, and others, well, they almost ruined it. Most of the stories were really, really bad and cost Hollywood millions of dollars.
I'm talking about this.
However, if you still found some of these movies enjoyable, we're with you. Just because a movie didn't make millions and millions of dollars, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was extremely terrible. For example, The Lone Ranger that starred Johnny Depp. I quite enjoyed seeing Kemosabe and Tonto on screen. When the movie came out, Johnny Depp was riding high on the success of Alice in Wonderland and Pirates of the Caribbean.
What do you say to 3 shillings? And we forget the name.
But Disney's big-budget reboot of The Lone Ranger sent his career into a tailspin, and then he had 2 back-to-back failures after this movie, Transcendence and Mordecai. Although to be fair, Mordecai did have some funny moments. His own personal troubles didn't help either. But again, he is Johnny Depp, so his career wasn't completely ruined.
My bags. I have a bloody manservant.
On the other hand, Gigli, which starred Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, was a massive, and I mean massive, failure. This movie is considered by many to be the worst movie ever made. They're obviously wrong. That title goes to the next movie on the list.
Hi.
Anyway, the movie ended up grossing only $7.3 million after it cost $75.6 million to make. To this day, the movie is heavily criticized and mocked. However, this isn't the worst movie on this list. Oh no, that glorious spot is only worthy of one movie, The Amityville Exorcism. Okay, not really. The 3 people that watched that movie are probably having a good chuckle right now. The movie that deserves the throne is Green Lantern. Before Ryan Reynolds embodied the amazing anti-hero we know and love, Deadpool, he was the DC Comics superhero Green Lantern. The movie was criticized for its inconsistent tone. The CGI was almost as great as the CGI they used for The Walking Dead's deer. And let's not forget how bad the villain portrayals are in the movie. The film ended up costing the studio $98 million and almost ended Daddy Ryan's career. Luckily, Ryan Reynolds is still out there and making amazing movies, and we can't wait for Deadpool 3. But one movie that should never get a sequel is The Great Wall. When the first trailer was released, the movie was already a massive laughingstock. Questions arose regarding appropriation of a white savior narrative. The over-the-top fantasy element also didn't help at all. Moreover, The Great Wall was the first movie in a long streak of failures for Matt Damon. It was followed by Downsizing and Suburbicon. Both of them weren't great movies either. He went from Jason Bourne to We Wish These Movies Were Never Born. Get it? Now, some movies lose a lot of money, and others have actors lose their star reputation. Red Planet, which was made in 2000, cost $93 million, but it didn't cost Val Kilmer's reputation. Instead, Kilmer lost his friendship with his co-star, Tom Sizemore. The sci-fi story that has astronauts stuck on Mars with a killer robot was destined to fail. The movie sounds like a story a 5th grader would write on a creative writing paper. I almost expected Val Kilmer to wake up at the end and realize it was all just a dream.
It's an exciting story, and it's plausible, and
So if we had to go back, let's say 70 years ago, falling over and being smacked on the head was the pinnacle of comedy. So if Around the World in 80 Days was released, then it would have been a hit. The Jackie Chan and Steve Coogan movie version of Jules Verne's novel, Around the World in 80 Days, was critically panned and lost about $99.6 million. Critics really tore into this movie, and many said the same thing. The movie almost entirely consists of people falling over and or being hit on the head. The next movie really shows that not every 3D movie is going to be as amazing as Piranha 3D. The Nutcracker in 3D is probably one of the biggest movie fails ever. The beloved Christmas Story was brought to the big screen in 3D, by the way, in 2010, but the movie fell extremely short. It has an estimated loss of $82 million. Now I hear you, that's not the highest loss so far.
Hello, Mary. You can talk. I've been waiting for someone like you.
Yes, but did you know that this movie has an amazing 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes? This is still not as bad as Town and Country, though. This 2001 movie had a few Hollywood heavyweights in the cast: Warren Beatty, Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, and Andie MacDowell. These are just a few of the actors in the cast. The movie was ill-fated even before it was released. It was delayed a whopping 12 times. Then it finally made its way to the big screen. However, it still ended up being a massive flop and cost about $85 million in losses. Now, before I say the next movie title, remember that just because the movie didn't make a profit, it doesn't mean the movie isn't great. Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet is probably one of my personal favorite animated movies, but we can't say that a loss of $82 million can place it on a list as one massive flop. Treasure Planet is Disney's reimagined tale of the classic Treasure Island book written by Robert Louis Stevenson. Sadly, this is one of Disney's least successful movies as it only brought in $13 million in its Thanksgiving opening weekend. Still, the movie's considered by many to be great, and you have to admit it, the music in the movie slaps. The next movie is another animation, Pixar's The Good Dinosaur. This movie made history for Pixar, and not in a good way. It was the first Pixar movie to bomb at the box office. It lost about $85 million, therefore making it the lowest grossing movie from Pixar. The film was charmingly adorable, and a lot of people will argue and say it was a fantastic movie. But sadly, the cuteness wasn't enough to draw people out. So now, imagine you're climbing up a massive beanstalk. When you get to the top, you see a man in a suit writing on a paper. He hands you the paper and says your movie sucked and it has a loss of $120 million. Well, that's not exactly what happened to the Jack the Giant Slayer movie, but it's pretty close. This 3D version of the classic English fairy tale had an amazing cast. Stanley Tucci, Ewan McGregor, Bill Nighy, Nicholas Hoult, and Ian McShane were in the mix. The movie that told the story of Jack and the Beanstalk ended up losing $120 million. But at least the movie had a story that made sense. Victory! Unlike the next movie in this video, Jupiter Ascending. The movie had Mila Kunis starring as Jupiter Jones, a cleaning woman who's told she's destined for greatness. Sadly, the movie wasn't destined for greatness. It lost $120 million at the box office and scored only 26% on Rotten Tomatoes.
You wanted to.
I'm still the same me.
The next movie is a 1995 swashbuckler film that went down in history as one of the biggest flops ever. Cutthroat Island. The film featured Gina David, Matthew Modine, and Frank Langella. The movie is known for its troubled and chaotic productions, so it didn't come as a surprise when we found out it had a loss of $147 million. That's probably why it's known as a historical flop. Evan Almighty is another movie that didn't do great. It hoped to be as good as its predecessor, Bruce Almighty. And yes, it did star the amazingly talented and hilariously funny Steve Carell, but it still ended up losing $88 million. You know who's also amazingly talented? You. So let us know which one of these movies you thought was the biggest flop, and which ones you really enjoyed. Remember to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.